There is another aspect to the HBCU college basketball world that you and I have been talking about recently. Over this past weekend, we saw Southern, we saw a number of other schools playing big schools, Florida, Duke, and the outcome is really lopsided. Now, there's a big paycheck there when they play these teams, but is that a productive way to schedule?
Well, if you make $40,000 and you lose by 40 points, I think it's offset. It's not competition anymore. Frankly, it's social service. I mean, you're taking a handout to take a beat down, and it's not healthy for the competitive process. It's not healthy for the kids, and it's not healthy for the program. It does nothing for your RPI. I mean, yeah, everybody has to finance the field hockey programs and the track and field programs, which are non-revenue generating sports. But at what expense, DB? I mean, this is not competition anymore. It's a handout, and I just think that until HBCU programs become more competitive, they might have to start playing teams maybe like the James Madisons as opposed to the Georgetowns in order to have a chance to win.
But here's what proponents of that will tell you. They will say that if I can tell a young man or a young woman that we're going to go in and we're going to play the Tennessee women or the North Carolina men or the Kentucky men, that you're going to get a chance to play them, that is a recruiting tool for them, that's a plus for their program. That's what they'll tell you.
Yeah, they'll tell you that, but if a kid's taking a beat down by 40 points and he's not really doing anything to enhance the prospect of getting an at-large bid. See, you got two separate but equal things going on in this mix. You got the one thing where it's about wins, or in this case, making money, and then secondarily, you want the team to develop itself so that they have confidence and chemistry going into a conference schedule, which will make them a tougher team come postseason. I don't think these games serve that purpose any longer, and there are certain programs, Coppin State in particular, where you've got an athletic director and head coach who makes a sum of money off the amount of money that he generates, which sort of leads these kids to slaughter, and I'm not comfortable with that anymore.
You're just not going to see that there's any way that this could be productive. I mean, even if, and you were talking about playing the big teams, but a lot of these teams, one of these teams in each conference ends up in the NCAA tournament. And what do they end up as? They draw a high seed. So if you played a team like that, at least in the earlier part of the season, doesn't that reduce some of the shock value?
It may reduce the shock value.
But it doesn't reduce the outcome.
Exactly. And the bottom line is we haven't seen too many teams, say for Hampton, benefit from a seed higher than 15. I mean, remember, if you get to 14, you got a chance to beat number, 3 is it? I think there's been a 15 or.
Well, there was Coppin State a few years ago. Remember, they knocked off South Carolina, Eddie Fogler's team.
We've had South Carolina lose to Coppin. You've had Southern knock off Georgia Tech. Right. You had Hampton take out Iowa State. But it seems like for every one victory every 5 years, you have hundreds of beatdowns. And when teams are losing by 40 and 50 points, 57, Southern didn't even score 30 points in 40 minutes of competitive basketball. That's embarrassing.
And Florida was playing without some of its stars.
Yeah, they got hit by the mononucleosis bug, the kissing disease.
Stephanie, I do not think that Mark is a fan of HBCUs and basketball on the
like
court with the major powers in college basketball.
Not until they learn how to win the games. Or at least stay within 30 points.
Within 30 points, right? We have to take our final break. And when we return, we're going to take a look at a couple of former HBCU players that have turned pro. Welcome back to the show. In this segment, we're going to talk about former HBCU players that turned pro. I would really love to know, what do you guys think when, a player turns pro going from an HBCU?
Well, it's gone quite well for Steve McNair. He's even gone retro, Stephanie. He's wearing his number from Alcorn State now. And it's been going well, but didn't go too well the last time out.
Well, it didn't go well against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I'm sure after where the Ravens were last season through 12 games of the season at 9-3, they're feeling pretty good about Steve McNair. He is an Omega. He did wear purple in college. He's wearing purple in Baltimore. Please do. I would pay money for that. Anyway, but McNair obviously seems to have found a comfort zone in Baltimore. He likes the uniform. He's got a great, talented crew of receivers around him. And the biggest impact that he's had, he's become a leader. And you can't put a value in the NFL on leadership at the quarterback position. And Steve McNair, as we saw back in the days when he's playing in Jack Spink Stadium, he does know how to lead.
And it does seem like he's got a new lease on life now. That happens all the time, lots of times with transitions. Is Michael Strahan auditioning for a reality show?
Or something on Fox Sports.
What is going on with him? What's going on with him?
You know, I just think it's the implosion that is playing in New York when things aren't going well. People were looking at Eli Manning early in the season and everything was going well. The defense was playing good. And it's not by happenstance that when the Giants start struggling, Michael Strahan not in the lineup. This is a guy's had some personal things going on off the field. Very nasty and public divorce during the course of the offseason. He's also injured right now. The team is struggling. But you know, winning cures the stench of everything. And they play the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. I don't think Strahan will play, but to call out his teammate like that really puts the burden of proof on everybody there. And you know, leaders have different ways of motivating. McNair will get into the huddle and lead a team by putting them on his back. Michael Strahan perhaps trying to get the most out of a player by calling him out on sports talk radio. And we all know sports talk radio, that bastion of, well, lunacy. What a great form to call your teammate out.
Interesting efficacy as far as that goes, because that's just not usually done. Let's move to basketball for a minute. Former Virginia Union star Ben Wallace, who was, the center and heart of the Pistons championship teams, it's a tough adjustment in Chicago right now, even down to the point of his headband.
Well, I mean, you get used to keeping everything squeezed real tight, and they tell you to take off the headband. I guess you're going to snap a little bit. But seriously, I think Scott Skiles in Chicago is the guy that has the problem. You know what you're going to get from Ben Wallace every night. You're going to get gritty, tough, hard-nosed performance. You're going to get a defensive presence. You're looking at a guy whose game is offensively evolving right now, and you're tripping off a headband. To quote the noted, always falling line sage that is Allen Iverson, we talking about a headband. We talking about a headband. We not talking about a sweatband. We not talking about sneakers. We talking about a headband. If a guy's going to get you 12 to 15 boards and play as tough as he does against the big guys that he's going to have to anchor their defense against, I say it's worth letting Ben Wallace, face of the franchise, guy you brought in, let him wear the headband. But
let's be fair to Scott Skiles. That edict is coming from John Paxson in the general manager's office. Recall when number 23 played in Chicago. There was always that they were butting heads between he and Jerry Krause were butting heads constantly. Are we going to see that now between Wallace and Paxson?
Oh, of course. But remember, when you take Paxson out of the mix away from Michael Jordan, I'm sure Ben Wallace has one more ring than Paxson has without playing with a player like Jordan. So let's understand what it is right now. General managers general manage. They put the roster together. They put all the pieces in place. They don't play the game. I would say, great coaches have always said, treat your stars a little different. Ben Wallace is a star. You know what you're going to get out of him. I think he deserves that star treatment. They know something about star treatment in Chicago, DB.
Yeah, Stephanie is As the World Turns in Chicago. Stay tuned.
Well, another show with great insight, and thank you, Dwayne and Mark. Now let's check in on Donna Hopkins, who is in the field this week working on a special report. Donna?
Thanks, Stephanie. Let's get right to our HBC Sports Report update. Wrapping up the football season, we've got Alcorn State beating Grambling 21-14 to finish their season at 7-4, and Tuskegee 17-7 winners over Johnson C. Smith to finish their season at 9-3. Now moving on to basketball. Howard in double overtime loses to Navy 79-75, and Penn State barely gets past Morgan State 80-71. South Carolina State beats North Carolina A&T Aggies 77-67, and Virginia State University held off St. Augustine College by 1 point, 63-62. Texas Southern, big losers to Connecticut, 106-55, and Fayetteville State University falls to Virginia Union University, 68-77. And wrapping up the college basketball scoreboard, Elizabeth City State University over North Carolina Central University, 93-66. Now let's go to the Big Apple Classic at Madison Square Garden for our sports highlight of the week.